Hello everyone, hope you're all having a great time at today's summit. If you are, make some noise. Great. So thank you for being in this room with us today. My name is Dr. Gloria, Blaise, and we are members of the Miami Community ResilientSea Project. And so today we'll hear a bit more about the project strategies, barriers, and opportunities. And so the project is a 3-year NOAA-funded project, and so it is based out of the University of Miami. And so I'd like to just acknowledge our collaborators on the project, which include Black Women in Ecology, Evolution, and Marine Science, the University of Miami, of course, ResilientSea campus, the Clio Institute, the Brave Free Oceans, Reef, Frost, Blue, Miami Waterkeeper, Prescription and Key Beach Park, and within ResilientSea Marine School, we are also collaborating with Dr. Ruiz Johnson Center. And so to keep things moving along, communities with less money and resources are hurt the most by climate change. But they're often left out when people make plans to fix it or just left out of programming for various reasons. So I'm from Haiti, but lived in New York most of my life, so I'm down here for now. But if it's correct, then most of Miami-Dade's on to climate change, correct? Okay. So outside of Coconut Grove, the eastern parts, and Gables, a lot of communities are facing challenges. And as you can imagine, they also face other challenges outside of the environment that impede their ability to participate in environmental programming on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning. And so Miami Community ResilientSea, its main mission is to ensure access and participation to all of the programming that our collaborators and beyond are doing. So imagine Frost, Saturday, invasive removals, and native plantings, make these kind of activities accessible to all community members that visit Miami-Dade. And so what do we do? What is Miami Community ResilientSea doing to help the coast and waters? So we're planting native coastal species. And this is through Frost Museum, Volunteers for the Environment. We're also restoring plants and planting coral colonies to rescue Reef. We're also removing trash and debris from debris-free oceans. And we're working with community. Community, I'm a social scientist, so community is at the center of all of my work. Without community, it's just a project that exists in time that would just do what it does and then exit.
Ensuring that internship opportunities are available to all of Miami-Dade residents, particularly those that are from Miami that would like to get involved in the environmental space. So our internship do not require any prior experience, thus opening doors for several people that are otherwise afraid to get into the environmental space. And so these are some images from our programming so far. On the left, you see us with Rescue Reef out in an expedition. In the center is Debris-Free Ocean, and also to the right is Debris-Free Ocean. Last year, we focused on the community of Little Havana. So we had several engagements there. And what you see here, again, is trying to build community, trying to heal communities, trying to get people comfortable. My personal experience as an ecologist is growing up, I was the only Black person in most of my very large classrooms at Rutgers and beyond that at Cornell. And so there's opportunity here to get people to be interested because, again, Miami-Dade is pretty diverse. And so we do need the people making decisions, the people a part of these programs, the people attending these programs to represent that full spectrum of diversity. And so through Miami ResilientSea, we're able to make a targeted, or have a targeted approach to ensure that we're going to the communities and getting them to come out to us. And a lot of our community activities are happening at historic Virginia Key Beach Park, which I heard earlier that they're going to be trying to restore the Virginia Key Park area, right? So that's good to hear that it's in the conversations already. And so with that said, I'm going to move forward. Today, we have a great lineup for you all. So, of course, I'm the moderator for today, so you won't hear too much from me, but I want to give the panelists a chance to give a bit of background. So, to my panelists, one at a time, please introduce yourselves and your background and why or how are you a part of Miami Community ResilientSea Project.
Okay, I guess it starts with me. Hi, everybody. My name is Miyah Brooks. I'm a PhD student at the University of Miami studying marine biology and ecology in the Cnidarian Immunity Lab, where I look at how corals respond to environmental stressors like disease, rising temperatures, climate change. I specifically look at the mechanisms that drive coral bleaching. I work with the project as a community engagement person, a project associate, bringing more people representation into the field and getting the community more engaged in the science and work that we do. And I want to say thank you for having me here.
My name is Amanda. I work as the Zero Waste Cultural Change Director at Debris Free Oceans. We're a local nonprofit that has been around for 12 years now, and our mission is to empower local communities to go zero waste, with the dream of that we would all have access to clean water and healthy environments. And my role through the ResilientSea project, well, DFO's role through the project is doing inland cleanups, which people always ask us, like, why is a group called Debris Free Oceans doing inland cleanups? But some people have talked about it today, like we're all connected. Any debris that ends up in the storm drains or in the sewers can eventually make its way into the ocean. And so we want to engage these inland communities and let them know that they are also making an impact. And yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Shannon Jones and I'm the Senior Director of Conservation at Frost Science, and I oversee all of our conservation programs, one of which is MOVE, which stands for Museum Volunteers for the Environment. And our role in this project is the coastal habitat restoration. We do beach dune, invasive species removal, native plantings, cleanups, and biodiversity monitoring. And we're really just happy to be a part of this team.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Karlisa Callwood. I'm faculty and the Director of Diversified Engagement at the Abbott Center for Ecosystem Science and Policy's undergrad program. And I'm also here in my capacity as the board president for BWEAMS, Black Women in Evolution, Ecology, and Marine Science. Black Women BWEAMS is dedicated to increasing the representation as well as the accessibility of Black women in STEM spaces, recognizing that environmental science and marine science is one of the least diverse sciences. So we want to make sure not only that we're seeing Black women in these roles, but they have support in these roles as well. In my capacity as part of the ResilientSea project, I'm one of the co-PIs on the project, and BWEAMS is helping to facilitate access for our members to participate in the internships, but also providing mentorship opportunities for those members as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Dalton Hesley. I'm a senior research associate at the University of Miami's Rosenstiel School, more specifically in Dr. Lehrman's Coral Restoration Lab. But our lab is somewhat unique in that while it is gardening and restoring corals for research, we launched a program, community-facing program, out of our lab called Rescue a Reef, because we just recognized that we really needed to better engage the public. So we bring individuals, divers and snorkelers on the boat to meet our scientists, to learn about the tools and techniques, and then work alongside of us to restore coral reefs. So we've been doing that work for about 12 years now, but just recognized that we weren't really reaching all Miamians. So we've continually tried to increase access. So that's kind of our role, is to think about who's actually joining us offshore, why, and how can we lower barriers so that more individuals have these opportunities. Because I think we can all agree when we see new individuals come out to these events, it really lights something up in them. So that's kind of the goal of this project.
Thank you, everyone. And so we're going to get into the discussion quite now. But I did want to just note that this is not a perfect project. No project is perfect given all the things that are happening around us that affect programming, budgets, all that stuff. So we're not in any way saying that we're perfect, but we are quite amazing. And so it is an effort to strengthen community resilience here in Miami-Dade. And so, as you can imagine, with all that you've heard and all of the challenges and barriers that communities face, there are challenges that we face as program managers and practitioners in our own fields. And so this line of work has allowed us to be able to, through Miami Community Resiliency, learn about some of the adaptations that our programming requires, but at the same time learn about ways to increase access to opportunities, access to employment opportunities in these spaces. And so this panel is intended to be an honest conversation featuring these lovely representatives of the collaborators on the project. And so we'll aim to answer 3 questions. And so those questions primarily are, what are the barriers to participation for frontline communities in debris cleanups, water, quality education, coral restoration, invasive species management, and climate education and advocacy? At the same time, we'll look at some of the strategies and institutions that institutions should consider as they think about doing this kind of work to support the Biscayne Bay's health. And lastly, what are the initial outcomes of the project? Everyone wants to know, so what's the status? It's been a year now, right? So there's some outcomes that we could perhaps share with you all. And so to keep things moving, I'd like to provide the first question, or pose the first question to Shannon Jones of Frost. So I'll read it from my phone. Frost events typically draw a wide range of attendees. And from what I've observed as part of the project, they consistently bring people out in strong numbers, sometimes perhaps too much, which is a great problem to have. So can you share, Shannon, with us how hosting events and hiring interns specifically under the ResilientSea project umbrella has felt different, and what insights that this experience have surfaced for you? What insights have surfaced for you?
Yeah, thank you, Gloria. Yeah, sometimes we plant those plants super quick. We're like, all right, beach cleanup time, because there's just so many people that come out. So I think that with ResilientSea, we have, I've already always worked with Debris Free Oceans and Miami Waterkeeper and Rescue Reef, but it feels like now we have this really planned out sense of community and the thoughtfulness behind our collaborations. And I think that we're all meeting together and making sure that we're all on the same page on which events are happening when. It helps us join each other's events or know when they're happening and spread the word a little bit better. I think having representatives from Miami ResilientSea come to our events and be able to talk to our volunteers expands their reach and also expands their experience, because then they get to learn about other great things that are going on in Miami. I would say the insight that I've gotten over the past year and a half is that it takes a lot of work to reach communities. I mean, this is more than one, it's basically 2 full-time jobs plus interns being able to get out into the community and to share what we're doing. And so, Move started in 2007, and our events are always free, open to the public, and we advertise them online, but that's the extent that we were able to go. And now we have individuals really asking the community what their needs are, what are the barriers for coming out to our events. And it takes a lot of work. So my recommendation for anyone who wants to kind of do this good work is knowing that it's going to take individuals that are fully committed to reaching different communities and different audiences and really paying attention to what those barriers are that we're going to all talk about today.
Thank you, Shannon. And I want to highlight one of the barriers that I've clearly observed is transportation. So I hate to keep saying this, but I'm a New Yorker, right? The MTA in New York is, of course, way more extensive than what I've observed here. And so a lot of our activities are happening at historic Virginia Key Beach Park. And in the North Point part of the park is so far. So one of the things that we're actively trying to figure out what kind of collaborations we can have to ensure that the transportation barrier to these events could be addressed or mitigated to some extent. And so my next question is to Dalton. Since Rescue Reef's activities take place offshore, we recognized early on in the project that Rescue Reef had to make some thoughtful adaptations. Can you walk us through the barriers you encountered and how Rescue Reef adjusted to better align with the community interests? And at the same time, as you described that process, tell us how Rescue Reef is inspiring the community to get involved in coral research and restoration.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Gloria. Yeah, I mean, early on from when Rescue Reef started, it was pretty obvious that there was a lot of limitations, right? Primarily, we were geared towards the scuba diving community, but that's actually a relatively small amount of people. And to be honest, they're pretty with it. So it's not like we were really changing any perceptions. So then it was incremental. Where we're like, all right, let's kind of adapt what we're doing to accommodate snorkelers so that more individuals are able to come on the boat and participate hands-on to still get that experiential opportunity. But even that still has limitations. And we hosted a town hall in West Grove where that became abundantly clear that more than a handful of individuals just weren't all that interested. Whether it was the time of day or the length, the fact that it was offshore. There's many things that prevent individuals from wanting to do those things. So we had to ask ourselves, all right, how do we bring the coral reef to the community? And some of the work of individuals in this room was thinking about meaningful educational opportunities that are immersive and kind of coral focused, again, on land. So we're working with virtual reality to create these like underwater excursions with VR headsets, thinking about laboratory tours and workshops, where that's kind of the closest coral reef you can have. So actually we just successfully hosted one with the Overtown Youth Center, the youth and families there. We bust them out, and it was incredible. We had an absolute blast. So it's really that where, kind of as Shannon touched on, for 10 years we were hosting what we could, but this project really pushed us to be more deliberate and meaningful with how we're creating these opportunities so that we really are ensuring access to all, because Miami's a big community. It's a big county. So we need to roll up our sleeves and actually figure out who we're missing. And it's been, again, incredibly rewarding just to understand what we are doing and what we're not doing through this project.
Thank you, Dalton. And so the next question, and I did want to actually add on that during that first meeting that we had in Coconut Grove with the community members, of course, I heard earlier during one of the architectural presentations about swimming, right? Learning how to swim. It's very expensive here in this state, I will say. And so as someone also still learning how to get my freestyle together, it was an honor to be able to host families on campus and get their excitement going, and of course get them to want to come out in the water with us too. So thank you, Dalton. My next question is for Amanda. So Amanda, Debris-Free Oceans continuously shows up to help South Florida protect its ocean. So through ResilientSea, the organization has been able to work closely with communities. Can you tell us, Amanda, how your engagement with the Little Havana community last year has shaped your approaches and strategy to keeping Miami's waters clean?
Thank you, Gloria. Okay, hello. Sorry, I don't know how to use these microphones. Our work with Little Havana has allowed us to reach new audiences that we previously haven't been able to reach. We might have had like trickle of members from Little Havana coming to our events, but this was like really targeted where we were in the community. We did 4 cleanups together and we saw the same faces returning every time, and they all collectively were members of the neighborhood that walked from their house to go to the cleanup and are seeing this environmental action happening right in their backyard, which was awesome. And for this work to be possible, we worked with a group called Healthy Little Havana, who their sole mission is helping Little Havana residents be healthy, and it's targeted to their well-being. So they're rooted in the community. They have an office there. They are the ones doing the work every day. And so we consulted with them for everything we did as part of these cleanups as to what location should we choose, what activities should we do, and even the messaging. So we created these zero waste toolkits, which are a water bottle with a reusable bag and cutlery set that every volunteer at our cleanups received. And on them, we printed messaging that says, reuse me to keep your community clean. And so this messaging, it's just a simple little phrase, but we worked with Healthy Little Havana to see what do you think would resonate with your community? If they receive this, how can they have this constant reminder to use this beyond this cleanup, the one time you got it? And then also as part of these cleanups, we got to do data collection, which everyone loves data. So we collected data on every single item that we picked up, and it's geotagged of exactly where it was picked up. So that's helpful for if we notice there's hot spots where there's a bunch of debris and there happens to be no storm drain filter. Now we can push the city to implement storm drain filters in that one spot. We also collected social science data where every single participant took a survey talking about their perceptions of waste in their community. So that hopefully will also drive political change, because we can say that X amount of residents are very concerned about the debris in their neighborhood, and you are the one responsible for doing something about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. And that zero waste kit was so cute. I took it to Haiti and people loved it. So it also had Haitian Creole translation. So that was awesome to have back in my country. And so my next question is for Karlisa. So Karlisa, apart from your academic achievements, you have spent years supporting Miami's youth and its diverse communities. This project leverages BWEAM's networks to ensure that our programming and internships open doors for all of Miami-Dade's young people. Can you speak to how having a partner like BWEAM's can shape the way Miami organizations think about diverse talent and equitable access to STEM?
Yeah, thank you. Really great question to think about. So one of the things that I think having a partnership with an organization like BWEAM's can bring to an organization is, thinking about this idea of access, which I've heard mentioned several times today. And I think it's more than just access. It's thinking about equitable access. And what does that mean, right? Because equitable access is more than just opening the door and having an invitation to these spaces, right? It's more about this idea of authentic engagement and what that looks like so that you're creating these truly welcoming spaces for these communities. I urge you to think about the panels that we saw this morning. Really great panels, really great topics, but the people on those stages did not necessarily represent all of the communities and demographics that we serve here in Miami, nor the people who regularly interact with or work and recreate in Biscayne Bay. So we really need to think about how we're doing a better job at authentically engaging those communities. And part of that includes the representation of people not only on those panels, but the people doing the science, the people doing the outreach, and those are the people who we want engaging in those communities. So that's one of the things that we've been able to infuse in this project by having some of the BWEAM's members serve as interns, because they're seeing people that look like them when they go into communities like Little Haiti or Little Havana, places like that. And I think back to when we were at the library in Culmer, and we spoke to 7 brilliant high school students, and several of them were like, I didn't even know I could go into environmental science for college, and I'm a senior. So maybe I can think about applying to these different programs. And it's representation like that makes a big change, not only for youth in communities, but for people thinking about how they can be powerful in making changes in their communities and their environments.
Thank you, Karlisa. Excellent response. Same thing for me. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I'm an ecologist, so I didn't really see myself in most people around me. And so I just randomly Googled one day, careers outdoors. And they said, get an ecology degree, you'll be fine. So thank you for sharing that, Karlisa. And so the last question for individual panelists goes to Miyah. So Miyah, you completed an internship with Miami Waterkeeper through ResilientSea, where you helped educate families about the bay and the water quality challenges it faces. As an early career professional and a PhD in training, how meaningful is it to have access to opportunities like these? And how has representation shaped your academic and career path to come?
Thank you for that question. Yes, I think opportunities like the one I had with Miami Waterkeeper showed me that, it reminded me that my science goes beyond just being confined in the lab and like hard-on research papers, but it's also about being able to connect and engage with these families and communities, because it's just as important, I feel like representation for me was a major part of my career, because when I was growing up, I did not know I wanted to be a marine scientist. I am a girl from Detroit, Michigan, and that was just not known around me. Nobody in my family wanted to be a marine scientist. I didn't have anybody to really look up to. I knew I wanted to be a scientist, but I just didn't know like what kind in my actual path until I met BWEAM's. I went to one conference, and that one conference really changed my life, I'd say, because I was able to see so many people who looked like me, and I wasn't feeling alienated anymore, because a lot of times when I go to marine spaces in my internships, I felt kind of like alone. I never really see people who look like me. So being in that space, it like lit my match, like it was a match that lit my fire, and it just continued to grow. And it was that one opportunity that took me to go into science communication and try to bring more people into like my science and make it more accessible, because I don't think that people don't care about environmental work. I think that people only care about what they are connected to, and it's really hard to connect to something that's unfamiliar, especially when it was like pushed from us. I mean, we're still undoing a lot of our history for our Black community. And as Gloria said earlier, a lot of times, especially in Florida, the communities that get hit the hardest are Black and like Latino communities, yet they are left out of the conversation the most. So I think it was a really great opportunity for me to be with my waterkeeper and be able to go out to see these communities and be able to actually talk to some of these families. And it was interesting to see because like some of the little girls would get so excited to see me because I was like the only Black person on like some of the expeditions or like some of the events. And they would just ask me so many questions about me actually having a career in this field and asking me how did I get into it. And they didn't know it was even possible. A lot of them haven't even been on a boat and they lived in Miami their entire lives. So it was just really interesting to see and understand that I was making an impact to these little girls and these other communities around me to know that yes, it's also possible not for just me but also possible for them. So yeah.
Thank you, Miyah. Thank you. So those were all of my individual questions. I know that we want to strategize on time. We're at 3:16 and the panel ends at 3:30, correct? So I was going to invite all the panelists to provide last thoughts, but I want to kind of mix it in with the questions. So if anyone has any questions so far, we can mix it into the final thoughts. Questions or thoughts? Right there.
Okay, so I work for a nonprofit based in Little Havana. We do environmental education. So I guess my question is like, is the program closed off? Like, are you guys at capacity in terms of like organizations, or are you still looking for partnerships?
Yeah, so to clarify, for Little Havana specifically, this is a 3-year project. So Little Havana was year 1 of the project. So we already concluded the 4 cleanups that we did. So now for this upcoming neighborhoods, we're doing South Dade and the Everglades with the Miccosukee tribe. So yeah, the answer is no for the sake of this project, but also Debris Free Oceans has done cleanups with the Little Havana community for years, even before starting this project. So definitely happy to connect and plan something outside of the scope of this. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dalton.
And if I can add on that, one thing I guess we haven't really been able to touch on too much is, these are the organizations that came together for this grant just because, we have collaborated and know that we're kind of working in shared spaces and could really have the positive impact. But we have done tremendous work, Gloria, to a large degree, in kind of reintroducing ourselves to the other organizations that are in the community doing this work that we want to support. So it's really a mutualistic project in that, if there's any way we can amplify your efforts, pool resources, we'd like to. And that's honestly how we built a lot of trust initially, is just working with the organizations that have those grassroots established, because it really does take a village.
Thank you. We have a question right here.
Yes. So I run a platform that brings art and science together to look at how climate change and pollution are impacting our waterways. I'd be curious
Thank you. I'd be curious to hear your take about how do you see art and culture fitting into the kind of programming that you do. I mean, I've worked with some of you before, but it's a continuous challenge for me to see how can we be more effective also in what we do in reaching out to wider communities.
Absolutely, and I could probably start that because one of our collaborators sustained the culture, ran by Ayana Florent-Abiltuni, another Haitian girl and part of Charlotte Bishop's lab. So her work focused on culture as resilience, as an infrastructural part of community resilience, since she also works with artivists, as that's the term, right, for activists that use art to talk about certain topics. And so through some of the things that we're learning through, for example, Sustain the Culture and Ayana's work, we're able to see how we can adapt our programming. And so community perception of resilience through her work was primarily culture. And so what we might think as infrastructure, physical infrastructure, it was actually the social capital, the ability to go next door to someone during a tough time or after an extreme weather event for help. So sometimes our idea of resilience across our different sectors might be different, but I encourage those to seek out resources from those entities that are doing that kind of research, because I was quite impressed by what I got from her research. But that's my comment. Is anyone else in the panel want to add to that?
I'll just say that I definitely think there's a space for that. in this resilience work and much of the work that's happening, whether it's related to the Bay or other environmental projects out there. As we think about how we're communicating the work that's happening, the barriers that we need to overcome and the strategies and solutions to get there, we need to think about other modalities of this communication, right? So art is one of those ways, thinking about how people connect with information, and art is a way to do that. So there's definitely space for that, whether it's as part of this project or a lot of the other things that we've heard about today.
Any thoughts on that? Oh, question right here. Thank you, Erin.
Hi, my name's Mary Agnes. I am visiting from the London School of Economics, but I grew up here in Miami, so I'm happy to be back. I've volunteered with a few of y'all's organizations a few times. But my question for all of you, which is sort of being touched on already, is there an area of friction that, if supported, would facilitate your outreach and collaborations? And specifically, how can professionals in other fields continue to contribute to supporting that point of friction?
Just so I can restate, you said, are there any areas of friction within our own line of work through the project, and how can entities in and around us support us through that friction?
Exactly.
Okay, see, I got it right. All right, awesome. So I'll start because initially, one of the things that we had to do was, of course, get acquainted with communities, right? And so, as you can imagine, over town, as you heard earlier in the larger room, 95 cuts right through it. And that community is facing challenges like no other, and to a certain extent. And so that was perhaps the toughest community for us to get involved in, because there are true champions and guardians of that community that you won't probably get past without a very long time of engagement, taking trainings through them. And so to a certain extent, we weren't able to fully get embedded with that group, but through other collaborators in Overtown, we were able to get some engagements going. So that was a little tough. I don't know how to answer that question with regard to that, so perhaps my colleagues can, but I will say that was definitely a point of friction in how communities saw themselves in this framework of, okay, we're not University of Miami, but we're under that umbrella, and the perception of University of Miami might be influenced by communities' experiences prior to us. So academia has its own issues or challenges that influence communities that should benefit from this type of programming, but because we're aligned, we have this new area of trying to figure out things through that lens now. So I'll pause there if anyone else wants to add to that.
I'll add that I think there's a role for funders here, particularly related to this problem, because in this work of community engagement, the trust building piece is not only the hardest part, it's the most time consuming part. So I think we have to work with our funders to understand that if they are requiring this full community engagement and community support for certain projects, they also have to understand that it can't be a 2-year project, because 2 years is what it takes to build the trust. So we really have to have that bi-directional conversations with our funders, with the grant makers, to get them to understand that this has to be a shift in their policy making with regards to how they give out money, particularly if they are requiring communities to be front and center as part of the work.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, fun fact, the first time we actually applied for this funding, it wasn't awarded, but it was probably a blessing in disguise, because it was only for 2 years. So then when we reapplied, it was for 3, and I am so grateful for that, because the first year really almost entirely was just establishing relationships, building trust. And I think for me, when we're talking about friction, it's really how we perceive these opportunities. And I say opportunities meaningfully because when we're hosting our coral restoration expeditions that are open to the public and only $20, many probably view that as an opportunity that they're eager to participate in. But it's a privilege to be able to think that way. And we have met so many people that view all of our activities as like work. They're like, I'm coming out to you and giving you 6 hours of my time and labor. I can't do that. I need more support, more resources. And so going back to the funders, you really have to be conscientious about how you're applying for these grants, so that it really can be an opportunity for all, not just those who have the privilege.
The 5-minute timer.
I just wanted to add briefly about another source of friction in that for us doing the inland cleanups, most people are used to beach cleanups and beach cleanups are super popular. Us doing street cleanups 4 times in Little Havana drew a lot of media attention to the point where the municipality was trying to stop issuing us permits for doing this work. And to get around it, it really got to developing relationships within the municipality. We were working with the park managers directly as kind of the advocates for us, like talking to the permitting department and saying, hey, this group, they want to do this cleanup. It's not going to affect my job. Like, please allow them. So it was a surprising source of friction of like, we're doing you a favor cleaning up the streets, but we were getting hit with like $400 special events permits just to mobilize a group of like 40 community members to clean up their own streets. So yeah.
Are there any final thoughts from anyone else on the panel before I give my closing 1 to 2 lines? No? Maya, you looking nervous, Maya?
I want to say something.
Say something, Maya. What do you want to say?
No, I was just going to add on. I think another friction is trying to, because the Resiliency Project is like the connector between all these organizations, and I think sometimes a lot of people get confused, like how is Miami Resiliency Project different from Miami Waterkeeper or different from the Reef Free Oceans? And I think a lot of people get confused that we are just that bridge connector, because all these organizations have the same goal and the same like ideas of what they want to do for the community and for our bay. But it's just bringing more of us, like, let's work together, let's collab more, and let's open it up more to the community and bring more people into this space. So I think trying to reach certain communities has been a little hard because we're getting like the same faces from the people who've been going to organizations like Miami Waterkeeper or the Reef Free Oceans. So it's been kind of hard trying to reach those communities like Overtown or like Little Havana, Little Haiti. And I think part of that is the transportation part of it because of where we're doing these cleanups and where we have our events. So I don't know how we would work around that or how we would combat that yet, but I do think that is a major problem, which is transportation and trying to figure out that transportation factor. Because I think a lot of people want to be a part of this work. It's just how do they get involved with this work.
So that means show me the money or establish that trust fund I heard about earlier for the bay.
Yeah, we need that trust fund. That was a great idea when he said that. I was like, oh.
Awesome. Well, that is it for our excellent panel. I want to just give them a round of applause. And Maya actually touched on what I wanted to say, which is we've heard that this is a temporary 3-year NOAA-funded project. We're trying to tackle some pretty complex challenges at the same time, and ResilientSea is serving as a hub or connector. And so at minimum, we hope that this entity or this platform that we're building can last beyond the project cycle so that people can come to us as individuals, as a group, to get access to these programs and internship opportunities and get that spark going, because there's so much that can be done by all of Miami-Dade for Miami's Biscayne Bay. And I'll be happy to pass the torch to someone that's local to Miami to be able to keep this work going. So I wanted to thank you all for sitting with us in the Manatee Room. And if there's any questions, of course, we'll be around the rest of the day, I guess. And thank you so much for your time and your enthusiasm and the questions. And thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I guess follow us on socials.
Oh yeah, follow our social media page.
They always say that. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, follow the social media page. Thank you guys so much.